For years, I swallowed my frustrations quietly. I carried pressure silently. I tried to keep the peace, tried to avoid conflict, tried to be understanding, patient, available, self-sacrificing. But while I was busy protecting everyone else's peace, I was slowly losing my own. What began as kindness slowly turned into resentment. What looked like patience slowly became emotional exhaustion. And the hardest part was most people around me probably had no idea how tired I was becoming inside. Hi, if you don't know who I am, I'm Dave Nassani, and this is Dave Wisdom Vault. I'd like to share a little wisdom, Dave wisdom, from that vault over there. Well, I finally reached a breaking point. I decided, enough is enough. I wasn't going to live like this anymore. But I quickly discovered something. That was easier said than done. Old habits are very hard to break. Kept helping everyone else, when deep down inside, I was the one who desperately needed help. Inside, I was getting tired. You see, there's a cost to staying silent. There's a cost to not stop the manipulation. A cost to becoming angry at myself once again, because I couldn't break the cycle. Sometimes my silence came from fear. Fear that people wouldn't like me anymore. Where'd that come from? Sometimes it came from guilt. The belief that setting boundaries was, selfish or somehow not godly or loving. Sometimes I was simply exhausted, too tired to argue, too drained to even speak up. And sometimes I just had no strength left to create a boundary at all. For a long time, staying quiet, it felt easier. I didn't want conflict. I didn't want another argument. I didn't want tension hanging in the room. So I told myself, it ain't worth it. I'm just going to let go. I'll deal with it later. But you know as well as I do, later rarely came. Because what I refused to say, it never disappeared. It stayed inside of me. Then, one day, I found a support group. Love support groups. I learned something life-changing. Not having healthy boundaries can become destructive, even dangerous. To borrow a phrase from the airlines, I realized I had to put my oxygen mask on first. I had to learn when to say yes and how to say no. I learned I didn't have to remain on call 24/7 anymore, because eventually that road leads to burnout. If I didn't care for me first, I wouldn't be able to care for anyone. So it started with my wife. She suffered a stroke back in '96, lost her speech and mobility. Then she started being really mean to me because, she was going through a grief process. She lost her body, basically, and I lost my wife. I was going through it too. So I took the advice, finally, of my support group. And I just started taking care of me first. Felt really selfish. So that I could take care of her. And something amazing eventually happened. We didn't fight as much. She started becoming her old self again. Our love was rekindled. For example, I learned that now, when I needed some personal time or a break from her, I would just simply tell her, honey, for the next hour or 2 or 3, I'm going to be unavailable unless there's a really true urgent emergency. And yes, those boundaries were constantly tested. And when they were, I calmly reminded her, oh, honey, remember I'm unavailable right now. Remember I told you that? Because I'm taking a well-deserved oh, I don't know, break or lunch or walk or massage or simply just time to recharge, whatever it was. What surprised me most was that once I learned to create these healthy boundaries with my wife, it became much easier to create them with everybody else. And then I realized something even deeper, if that's possible. It wasn't always other people stealing my time. Many times, if not all the time, it was my own fault for never establishing healthy boundaries in the first place. Because if boundaries don't exist, people often don't realize that they're crossing them and that they're offending you. And once boundaries are established, they must be enforced. I constantly hear stories from people overwhelmed with guilt, resentment, exhaustion, emotional burnout. And almost every story traces back to the same problem. You guessed it, no healthy boundaries. Ray Romano, that famous comedian, you know him, right? He started his hit comedy series, Everybody Loves Raymond. Well, in the show, his parents lived right across the street from his family. And he was plagued by them constantly coming over without calling, without even knocking. All because he was unable to institute or enforce proper boundaries. Because he couldn't handle the consequences of enforcing them from his mother because she was so, I don't know, you fill in the blank, overwhelming. Boundaries are necessary because even good people can take too much when limits exist, or I should say when limits don't exist. And remember, just a little bit of wisdom, Dave wisdom, from that vault over there can bring a whole lot of success. Hey, if this message was valuable to you today, please consider sharing it with someone who may need to hear it. This is Dave Wisdom Vault. Divine wisdom, real life.